Release brakes now. Burners now. Okay, get ready. Oh my God.
Now it's almost an unbelievable sight. A roof completely blew off a home.
Has now brought the fight into federal court.
They've been pulling these things up onto the shore like crazy.
Miraculous seems to be the word of the day. 11 people walking away from this plane crash.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. That was much louder than I expected it to be.
Fans were lined up hours before this game.
Hey. Yes, I know. All right.
The views, they're incredible. And the people here are so welcoming.
Just one problem. There's no road to get there.
You're going to need four-wheel drive and a sense of adventure.
And my goodness, is it beautiful.
There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. And I like to think we came pretty prepared.
I am going to drive this bus on the course. Wish me luck.
Good morning, everyone, and we're hoping that you are safe and sound at this moment. Here is the very latest following that massive earthquake that we had early this morning.
Take a look behind me right here. This is pretty extensive damage. That car was actually on the road when the earthquake hit. We are happy to report that the people in the vehicle were not injured at all. I actually spoke with them a few minutes after it happened. They are actually on their way to the airport trying to head to California. They seemed in good spirits. They were not injured whatsoever.
Tracy, can you hear us and what are you seeing?
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. We are right over that area near Cluno where the road has collapsed away. Traffic has been diverted, so both lanes are moving on the other highway on the southbound lane. And it is major damage to that road. You can see that one of the lanes is completely fallen away, as well as the exit ramp has fallen away.
We are now going over to Jay Bear, where Governor Walker is about to speak about this emergency situation throughout South Central.
Well, this morning, Alaska experienced another significant earthquake. 8:29 this morning. I think it's been upgraded to about a 7.2. It was significant, very significant, very concerning. We have a lot to be thankful for. We have not had the loss of life that other locales will have had in our world with this size of an earthquake. Building codes mean something, inspections mean something, and the response that we've had, I think the best way to put it, it's been a 7.2 earthquake. Our response was a 10.
It's Governor Bill Walker wrapping up a press conference you saw live here on Channel 2 News. And one of, I thought his key quotes was something that I think a lot of us were thinking today. The governor saying, this had a bite to it that was not comfortable. And the governor adding, I thought this might be the big one.
You ready to get back into school? Yeah? After that long weekend? I'm glad you brought your water bottle today.
Are there any cracks?
Are there any cracks? If there was any cracks, guess what? Mr. Russell was here all weekend and he fixed them already.
Mr. Russell is Russell Lloyd, the janitor and go-to fix-it man.
Good morning. How are you? Good to have you back. Good to have you back.
The other Russell is Principal David Russell.
Sun Dogs, I want to take a second to express how proud I am of you all during last week's earthquake.
He debriefed staff on Wednesday. Now, students get their turn.
All the lights went out, the ceiling started falling. We quickly got under the table. And I heard something, so I looked up and all of the walls were just like waves. So I got under her desk and stayed there until my mom ran into the classroom and got me out of the school.
The school has had a thorough checkup. At drop-off, moms reassured their children.
They just asked if there was any cracks or anything like that in the school, and I told them no, that they would make sure that, that they were safe. So.
I feel really confident about that. A lot of eyes in a lot of different places over the facility as a whole.
Inside the classroom, students processed the big shake.
I got freaked out.
The way kids do best.
We went to go check on all of our animals. Like my brother's parakeets were traumatized.
Healing through storytelling.
My dog just didn't really know what was going on, and my hedgehog. A hedgehog? His little bed fell over.
It's a return to learning,
I think that's important that that routine continues.
a return to a safe place.
We also are keeping an eye out for those kids that have concerns and are still a little bit traumatized.
And along the way, a lesson or two about life.
A lot of cracks happened in a lot of houses, especially in the sheetrock, and that's something that they're going to be able to fix easily.
And about people. Human connections that help keep our community strong.
We're hoping that you are safe and sound at this moment. Here is the very latest.
The earthquake was about a 7 magnitude and was centered just north of Anchorage.
If you are in a safe place, stay there.
Cracks in the road, cracks in the sidewalk.
And then the road fell in on top, and that car just kind of slid down.
Alaskans responded in the best traditions, helping out their neighbors, making sure that they were okay. Take a deep breath, hug your kids, say a prayer. We've gotten through this one so far so good. We'll be okay. Good evening, everyone. In the news stories we cover here at Channel 2, sometimes there is just one image, a single picture that says it all. And we want you to see one of those right now. It's the first look we got today of the site of the plane crash in Denali National Park. It was posted on the park's Facebook page earlier today. In this wider view, you can see the rugged terrain and just how steep this mountain is. It's hard to see, but if you look right here, that little red spot, this is the wreckage of that flight-seeking plane that went down on Saturday evening. Now, the plane is barely visible in the snow, which no doubt made it harder for rescue crews to find it. And it's hard to believe the plane stayed on this very steep snowbank on the side of the mountain. Now, 4 people are now confirmed dead. The 5th is missing and presumed dead. Channel 2's Cameron McIntosh is live in Talkeetna tonight with the latest. Cameron.
Well, Mike and Alexis, after days of bad weather, thwarted attempts to launch a recovery mission, Rangers were finally able to make it to the crash site today. A single ranger suspended from a helicopter was able to examine the plane up close for the first time since Sunday. And dramatic new photos, as you've just seen, released this evening, show the aircraft perched at the edge of a very steep slope. The plane is sitting on an unstable crevasse in an area that's seen about 2.5 feet of fresh snow since the crash. So rangers say there is a considerable avalanche danger in the area, and the plane is broken in half to complicate matters further, with the tail section dragging the wreckage down towards a 3,500-foot drop. There's also reportedly a lot of jagged metal protruding from the wreckage, which is a danger to rangers as well. So after evaluating all of those conditions at the crash site today, rangers decided that it would be too dangerous to try and remove the bodies or even any of the wreckage from the crash site, and so they've decided that a recovery mission will not be attempted.
Get him on. I could hear noise to the left. So I look and this brown bear comes lunging out of the woods, and I was in front and Paul came running in front of me.
A terrifying encounter. A searcher is attacked while a missing hiker is found dead. The latest from Eagle River.
A tragic ending to this story that began Monday night, which is when this hiker first went missing. Family and friends descending upon Highland Road here in Eagle River in an effort to find him, as you're about to see, at all costs. As the days often do for hikers in Alaska, Wednesday begins full of sunny promise, with hopes of safe travels, adventure, and grand views.
At 5 p.m. Monday was the last time they had heard specifically from Mike.
But for one Eagle River family, their only wish was for the safe return of 44-year-old Michael Saltis, who'd seemingly disappeared without a trace Monday night after leaving his Highland Road home for a hike.
It was a little weird that he didn't text his fiance goodnight on Monday night.
Friends and family say he left his car, left his dinner, left with obvious intentions of being back soon. And when he wasn't, a massive search for the missing hiker began. By Wednesday morning, a whole crew had assembled to look for Soltis.
It was really bad. It just took it for me.
Okay, it's okay.
Oh, God, we need an ambulance.
Okay, we're getting it.
The fear compounding when a searcher was attacked by a brown bear.
Tourniquet, get him on. Really bad. He took attack with the bear.
And police say taken to a local hospital in critical condition.
The people of this community are trying to help, and a guy just got attacked by a grizzly bear that's protecting something who could be my brother.
But then, for the loved ones of the man engaged to be married and expecting a child with his fiancée, fear turns into a worst-case scenario as Soltis is found lifeless, mauled by a bear. And nearly a year to the day from the last fatal Anchorage area bear mauling, another family and circle of friends are left to grieve.
My mom, my sister, my brother-in-law, we all hiked the mountains last night as best as we could, but there is no ground support.
And to try to make sense of what happened.
Channel 2 News is given special access inside the mission of Alaska's 425 Spartan Brigade deployed in Afghanistan. This week, see a typical day in the life of the soldiers at Bagram Air Base and what it's like being a married couple stationed together in a war zone. At Forward Operating Base Fenty, we visit a memorial to fallen soldiers, a constant reminder of the danger troops stationed here face as they train, advise, and assist the Afghan military. Operation Afghanistan, this week on Channel 2 News.
Channel 2's Blake Essick and photojournalist Albert Luton take us now to one such outpost on the front line against insurgents.
The flight we're about to take from OP Mad Dog in the southern Nangarhar province almost never happens during the day. That's because the number of insurgents hiding in the Mohmand Valley is making this flight incredibly dangerous.
Embarking on a journey in one of the most perilous regions in the world. We are wheels up from Jalalabad Airfield. Touching down at Outpost Mad Dog about 20 minutes later. It's a short flight, but one that requires an escort into a part of Afghanistan affectionately known by U.S. soldiers as the Valley of Death.
It's just an all-around dangerous place.
Situated in the Mohmand Valley, a handful of miles from the Afghan border with Pakistan, Outpost Mad Dog and several others like it are located on what's considered the front lines in the fight against ISIS and the Taliban.
This is an inherently dangerous place, absolutely, and you have bad guys all around us.
Because of that, this small rugged outpost with no running water, no kitchen, and tents built from scratch.
This is the most austere location you can really get.
Is manned by U.S. infantry and artillery platoons from the 425, standing guard 24 hours a day.
Yep, good to go, sir. Here we go.
Constantly training. They aim to send a very loud message to insurgents.
There's no safe area as far as U.S. personnel here. So we maintain pretty strict guard towers and defensive operations.
The 425's primary mission here to provide security on the ground and artillery fire support for both U.S. and Afghan special forces, conducting operations within the valley. A call First Lieutenant Kyle Brand says his platoon is prepared to answer.
They definitely understand that at any moment they have to drop their stuff and do whatever they're doing because someone's calling on them, and they're calling on them for a pretty good reason.
One Green Beret, who asked us to protect his identity, says the Spartan Brigade's support gives him and his team peace of mind.
It's nice to have the 425 soldiers there with us, carrying what we carry, bringing the fight to the enemy. I trust the Afghan forces; they're capable. There's just a peace of mind having an American next to you, having a guy wearing the same flag as you.
And providing cover here is no small responsibility. It's a life and death fight against determined insurgents trying to hide throughout these hills.
On a clear day, you can see the enemy. You can see American aircraft, doing their mission.
A desperate yet determined fight in a 16-year battle to control these otherwise quiet mountains.
To report.
No comment.
To tell a story.
This body is the second body you've seen in the same location.
To dig deeper, go further, look closer, find more.
Police just arrived and have surrounded the car with guns drawn, and they have some guys on their knees.
To hold the powerful accountable, to ask the hard questions, to reveal the truth, to investigate. KTUU investigates, only on Channel 2 News.
What you can't see back there is that there's some furniture, some sofas. There's what appears to be a city garbage can.
Anchorage allows residents to flag camps online using maps and photos.
So I'm going to tell them that it's a camp with tents, a little bit of details.
And we weren't the only ones.
We had one person do it initially. We didn't get much response from that, so we actually had everybody go through and do it because we thought maybe more the better.
Monica Emerton owns the Greenhouse Connection on 15th Avenue, just uphill from the camp.
Slowly, kind of one by one, we got them kicked back to us saying that there was nothing they could do because it wasn't on public property.
While it's illegal to camp on city property in Anchorage, we learned this camp is actually on land that belongs to the adjacent strip club, Crazy Horse. And that's where things get complicated.
Washington News isn't just national. You need to know how politicians' decisions affect you.
Our team of reporters is here to hold your lawmakers accountable.
We work just steps away from the Capitol.
We know your members of Congress.
And they know us. Our bureau is here to get you the information you deserve. When news in Washington impacts you and your family, count on us.
Get the latest in Alaska politics from Washington, D.C. on Channel 2 News. We are your Washington News Bureau.
The process of redistricting can be controversial and politically charged. The thinking goes that state lawmakers and governors draw these districts in ways that make it easier for them to win races in the future. Opponents of the process, referred to as gerrymandering, say politicians are picking voters when it should be the other way around.
And if you have a question about what's going on at the state capitol, let us know and we'll do our best to try to find the answer for you. Just email us at askjuno@ktuu.com. This week, viewer Ruth Decker of the Northern Matsu Borough wanted to know whether the state's marijuana tax was dedicated to a particular purpose and if it could be spent on education.
Channel 2 News political reporter in Juneau, Rich Maurer, looked for answers.
To get the answer, we crossed the street from the Capitol to the state office building where Ken Alper works. He's a former legislative aide who now is the state's tax director. We have a question from a viewer, Ruth Decker, who wants to know where the marijuana tax is going.
So, Rich, the marijuana tax is general fund revenue, and then the legislature, with the crime bill, SB 91, that passed in 2016, set that half of that money should go to something called the Recidivism Reduction Fund. That supports a series of programs in the Departments of Corrections, Public Safety, and Health and Social Services designed to keep people out of prison, people who come out from having to go back to prison.
Is your call for extending the NUCA model, are you really just saying single-payer health care?
Okay, so the NUCA model does receive funds from Indian Health, from veterans, from Medicaid, Medicare, and some grants. I appreciate that.
The only way you can pay for that is cut out Social Security and Medicaid. That's what we have to think about. Do we want to do that? I don't think so.
Election day, of course, is November 6th, and we encourage every Alaskan to get out and vote and make your voices heard. And good evening, everyone. Alaskans all across our state are deciding tonight.
From governor to the U.S. House, we're keeping a close eye on all of those major races online and right below your screen.
Now, our team of Channel 2 reporters is spread out at the campaign watch parties all across Anchorage tonight as we follow the candidates and their supporters.
Don Young has entered the building. As you can see, he's actually walking through the doors into the Egan Center right now. Election Central to cheers from all of his supporters. He's got a whole bunch of people that have been waiting outside for him to show up, and here he is coming in, shaking hands, a round of applause from the crowd, excited to see him. A big smile on his face as he looks up at the election results, thinking that he's probably got this his 24th now election here in the bag.
Welcome to Chengdu, the capital city of the Sichuan province in western China, home to roughly 50 million people, and the first stop for Alaska's trade mission through China.
Our governor and business leaders are negotiating to increase trade between China and Alaska. Follow our series of special reports from China showing the life, culture, and business dealing of the world's most populous nation.
Reporting from the Great Wall of China at Mutianyu, I'm Blake Essing.
Watch China Trade, Alaska's new frontier, only on Channel 2 News.
Built about 2,000 years ago, stretching more than 13,000 miles across northern China, the Great Wall is perhaps the most recognizable symbol of China's long and vivid history, one which attracts visitors from all over the world and could soon be about a 7.5-hour nonstop flight away from Alaska.
It's just
unimaginable how this happened. Look at that. 13,000 miles.
That's Larry Cash. He's the CEO of Rim Architects based in Anchorage.
And just look at it. It's a gorgeous piece of our history, of the global history, of China's history, and the architecture is incredible.
An experience for the second time, which has left this architect with goosebumps. One which he hopes will someday be more easily accessible.
Going to see the wall. That 7.5-hour flight would be fantastic to open this up to many more people and to open Alaska up to many more visitors.
For now, the size, magnitude, and first-hand understanding of exactly how this wonder of the world could possibly have been built remains a mystery to many.
It gets up to like 20 meters high at some point, which I have no idea how they made that. It makes me kind of believe aliens are real.
As for Larry the architect, real question, could you build this wall?
I could not build this wall, but I'm glad somebody did.
Go!
Bye-bye.
So the lift is the easiest way to get up the mountain, the fastest and most fun way to get down the mountain, the sports slide. Reporting from the Great Wall of China at KTUU, I'm Blake Essing.
Welcome to Alaska. Are you prepared for spectacular views, majestic wildlife encounters, and earthquakes, floods, tsunamis, wildfires, windstorms, extreme cold, volcanoes, power failures, human threats, water and food shortages? It's a fact. Disasters happen. The only question is, what will you do until help arrives? Watch a groundbreaking week-long series on Channel 2 News and find out, are you prepared?
Having an emergency escape plan in place. I'm sure we'd all like to think we know what to do in case of an emergency, but what happens when this door is blocked?
We have all become so dependent on our cell phones, really dependent, and that could be a vulnerability.
We're at a house that was built in the 60s and it's located in an older part of Anchorage. And Dan, you're here to talk to us about how to make sure your home is safe should we have an earthquake.
We are in the Brooks Range at the most inland community in Alaska. You can see there's mountains everywhere. You can only fly here, but this is Onaktuviq Pass, a community of just over 300 people.
Here, food is flown in bulk from bigger cities.
An airplane, not being able to come in would probably be the biggest disruption.
So how exactly do you go about preparing for a volcanic eruption? Jeremy Zidek is with the State Emergency Management Team. He's here to show you how to prepare for and stay safe during a volcanic eruption.
When ash is falling, you want to stay indoors. But if you do need to go outside, you want to protect yourself.
Here's what you'll need: a hat, a hooded jacket, safety goggles, N95 strength face mask, and gloves.
Now you're ready to go outside in the ash.
Derek Minnemeyer, Channel 2 News.
Grillin'.
Chillin'.
Fillin'.
Willin'.
Thrillin'.
MK and Patrick are loaded up and ready for the Channel 2 Sports Tailgate Tour. Each week we'll tailgate the hottest high school football games and bring you live updates in our newscasts.
Waitin'.
Clayton.
Anticipating.
Ladies, you cannot help but dance when you hear this song. I'm going to have to go mosey on in with them. But coming up, we're going to hear from some cheerleaders, and I've got a story about one Colony player who's really making an impact.
This is Alaska high school football above the Arctic Circle. You've got the ocean over there, and then right here, you have the trademark Barrow High School blue turf.
One of our preseason workouts, we were about to go to the field, and I believe we had to cancel practice because there was a polar bear warning, and that there was a polar bear roaming around our field.
What we're fueling up on right now, Victoria, this is Spam Misubi. I'm told it's basically a Spam sushi roll. It's pretty good, actually.
Now, I enlisted some help from my friends at the West Cheerleading Squad. If you notice, they are donning their KTUU glasses. And ladies, what are your thoughts on tonight's game?
Well, West High works hard and we play harder.
Well,
Alaska. We're here in Kodiak. Game going on right now. Bears driving. It's around 3rd and 8. Ooh, first down, big run. Is he going to score? No, just outside a little bit. Hey, Kodiak, how are you guys doing? They're doing pretty well. This is the student section. We're going to walk all down here. Everyone has turned out for this game.
The Eagles are undefeated this season, and a lot has to do with stepbrothers Bubba Mendoza and Colton Ortiz. The duo is dangerous when they have the ball. Now, earlier, well, there's a football.
Yeah, Patrick looks very, very well equipped. He's got his lawn chair. He's got his tent out there. He's got his cooler.
He's made some food, though.
Yeah, and he's got some cups, which I'm sure are just filled with sparkling spring water and nothing else. So.
And we're getting to the end of the season. I've been through so many of these, I feel like I'm starting to become a veteran at this.
All right, Patrick, you just kick back. Don't work too hard, and we'll see you back in a few minutes.
Just take a break there, Patrick.
It's a homecoming of sorts. The path less taken. After years of poor trail conditions forced the race to the north, the Iditarod returns to its southern route once again. Amid long-standing traditions and renewed controversies, more than 60 mushers will take to the trail to challenge 1,000 miles of Alaska's most isolated land. Mushers and their teams will endure brutal weather extremes and hours of isolation. But a warm reception and a hot meal makes the distance a little more bearable. Whether you're first or last, it takes strength and stamina to cross that finish line. And it all starts today, live in downtown Anchorage. Iditarod 46.
Good morning and welcome to Channel 2's coverage of Iditarod 46. I'm John Carpenter along with Libby Riddles. We're in the studio. That's a beautiful shot of downtown where the racers will be taking off in just a few minutes. And number 33, go ahead, you pronounce his name.
Your Liftsef Olsson.
That's good. That's
Pretty
what
close.
I would have said. Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said.
Fastest rookie to have ever run the Iditarod.
Unbelievable, yes. Never finished out of the top 7. Ever.
Yeah, and he was second in the Cusco, which, like I said, was extremely tough this year. He's got amazing control over his dogs and just a really super bond with them.
He's got a super team. He finished 4th last year, 6th in both of 2016 and 2015. He was 4th in 2014 and 7th in 2013, which was his rookie year. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and the guy is just, he seems like bomb-proof. He's just like a pretty rock-steady guy, and the dogs must pick up on that too.
Yes, confident but quiet, and to me, it's like this is a team to look out for.
There you go, Hugh. He's always a great character to have in the race, and he won't be last place for long, that's for sure.
No, 2004 Rookie of the Year, and I got to know Hugh a little bit when he was running the Yukon Quest, and I was covering that race. We talked with you before you hit the starting line. Let's hear what he had to say.
This is the years I'm going to try to prove that I'm not getting older. So this is my 32nd 1,000 miler since 2000, my 14th Iditarod. This is Havana's 8th. And, as you get older, you realize that it's not about what place you come in, it's about loving life. You got every year in the Iditarod, the beauty of the Iditarod is there's so many beautiful dogs. So I don't really care what place I come in, I just want to have fun.
But as for those who have hung on even through that rough weather, they've been led for the most of the race by current leader, Girdwood musher Nick Petit, a man who says he has no real plan, yet he stayed near the front of the pack. So who is he and what's his strategy? Channel 2's Blake Essig is here trying to figure it out. Hi, Blake.
And Beth, we've asked Nick Petit about his race strategy several times since before the race even started, and the guy is a stonewall. Well, it's either that or he really truly is just figuring it out as he goes.
It's been 8 years since Nick Petit first ran the last great race on Earth. And despite 4 top 10 finishes, his plan...
I'll signature.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Nick, we'll bring you your bag.
Well, he prefers to shoot from the hip.
Planning sucks. Planning sucks.
A mentality that seems to fit his self-description as a musher.
Dirtbag ski bum. I started running dogs kind of like you would be, a ski bum and would go skiing. So, you got some dogs, you need some help? Sure.
Back in 2011, he made his Iditarod debut by accident. running then 72-year-old Jim Lanier's team after he blew out his hip.
Things like that happen.
Petit was working for him as a handler at the time.
I took this team and did the Iditarod, and it worked out pretty good. He told me I did better than he ever does.
In part crediting the veteran musher for advice he received back then for success so far on this year's trail.
I just followed his instruction. He said, stay away from the back of the pack because sour dogs, you know, or dog fights or bacteria. So you can get out front, away from all those. Get parked by yourself. Works out good. Thank you, Jim Lanier, for the good pointer.
But for the dirtbag ski bum musher without a real plan,
2 checkpoints where I thought I might do it 24, so this is going to be some lucky local dogs.
he has a strong interest in where he stands in the race.
Let me see that checker. Checker. I want to see that board.
And plan or no plan,
Dogs are looking good, so I'm feeling good.
it seems to be working.
The cheers are starting to get louder, so I imagine he is probably getting pretty close. And there he is. I see his team. He has crossed the finish line. Your life, Seth Olson, Iditarod 46 champion. Congratulations.
Help send kids with critical illnesses on the trip of their dreams.
Every mile counts.
So go to KTUU.com and donate your air miles today.
The numbers are in, and Alaska, you've made us proud.
Throwing hearts at you guys. As of this morning, we are at 2.35 million miles and counting. That's
best
the crazy
part,
thing.
and counting,
With
yes.
donations, of course, still being tallied, but we want to say thank you so much to Alaska for contributing for this worthy cause, as the miles and the money donated, of course, all goes towards helping kids with life-threatening illnesses have those wishes granted.
Hundreds of Alaskans made the leap into Resurrection Bay this afternoon to raise money for cancer, including Channel 2 crew members Beth Verge, Leroy Polk, and Nikki Carvajal. One KTUU cancer survivor served as inspiration for the crew to take the plunge into the ice-cold water.
I was really scared. I'm not a very strong swimmer, and honestly, I was thinking about Tracy Sinclair the whole time. And how brave she is, and that's how I got the courage to do it.
Oh, big love for Nikki right there. The Channel 2 crew raised nearly $1,000 for the charity event, which brought in nearly $100,000 in donations for the American Cancer Society. A group of people from Channel 2, including yourself, competed in the Clean Air Challenge yesterday. Tell us about it.
It was great fun. Our team is KTUU News Flash, and the driving force behind this effort was Brad Hilwig, our marketing director.
Halfway mark, 50 miles, 50 more to go. Starting to rain. Can't complain though. Peace out.
We had a team of 9, and we rode varying distances of 26, 60, or 100 miles. And we had a bit of everything weather-wise: rain, wind, hail, and sunshine. Overall, it was a great day and for a good cause. Now, the Clean Air Challenge raised more than $265,000.
It's a Chugiak Eagle River tradition. For more than 30 years, crowds have been flocking to the Bear Paw Festival. This year featured some new additions and some members of the Channel 2 news team.
All right, Channel 2! Good for you! My favorite part of Bear Paw? The parade. It was great. It was really good. It's a big parade. It's a huge parade for our little town.
We had to walk about 6 blocks just to get here. We got here whenever the parade was going on. It was definitely worth it. Definitely worth it.
Every spring, Channel 2 gets a chance to get out of the office and head out road tripping. This year, we decided to get off of the pavement and head out on the road less traveled.
Doing what?
Road tripping, like they're going off-roading. I'm like, we're the Warning Edition. We're first for everything. Like,
You mean like landing on a glacier or something?
exactly. Yep, sounds about right.
We're going road tripping?
Road tripping.
And we're going on glaciering.
We haven't even taken off yet, and Arion's freaking out. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Hoppy's never seen this part of Alaska before.
This is awesome.
Josiah, great first landing.
Great first landing, Josiah.
Yeah, he got it on the 5th try, guys.
Welcome to Alaska, Howard.
Yeah.
you.
This is how we do.
Okay guys, so we landed here on Knik Glacier. We learned about it for about 10 minutes, took photos for 3.5 hours.
I almost fell into the water, but thanks to these ice cleats. And Howie, you didn't do too bad.
These ice cleats are the greatest invention
You
around.
did fall in the water though, didn't you?
I drank from the water.
A little bit, yeah.
This place is
Fell in
actually
a little bit.
beautiful.
This is so pretty. And then
Amazing.
Howie, what did I tell you to bring? Your sunglasses. And what did he bring?
What did Howie not have?
His sunglasses.
I brought my gloves.
It's all right.
It's okay.
Hey, so how's this for off-roading?
Have fun, Mike and Rebecca.
Have fun.
We'll just stick to helicopter rides over Knik Glacier. How about that?
Have fun on road tripping. All right, we're gonna go climb some ice. Come on, Howie. I got you.
All right, it's time to kick in the four-wheel drive and hang on. We're going to take you road tripping down the Petersville Road. It's a journey to adventure and back through Alaska history. Wow. The Petersville Road, roughly 34 miles of mostly gravel, some deep mud holes, and spectacular views of Denali, along with some creek crossings that you might want to think twice about before driving in.
There are some parts of Alaska so beautiful and remote that most people will never see unless you take a ferry or a 12-minute float plane ride. We leave Ketchikan headed to Metlakatla, passing small islands, ships, rainforests. The day, beautiful and bright, spreads before us, and as we touch down on the other side, we realize this is no ordinary island.
Machlachasla di wil wadku. Lach gibur ipt ero. Nuggets smash wadina guadu. Lach skik ipt echt. I see this is what our ancestors made for us. And it's our beautiful little part of the world.
Pavement ends. Headlights on for the next 400 miles. No services. These are not signs you typically see on a highway, but there is no other highway like the Dalton.
Off the James Dalton Highway. Here we go.
This is for James.
Named after renowned Arctic engineer James W. Dalton, the road was constructed in 1974 to help build the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. And because hundreds of trucks still use it daily to bring supplies and equipment to Alaska's oil and gas fields, it's also known by its original name, the North Slope Haul Road.
We're here in Whittier, Alaska, where we're going off the beaten path for Road Tripping 2018, traveling today by track on the Alaska Railroad's Glacier Discovery Train.
1, 2, 3. Also, the Chugiak guides, they do a rafting trip, which you folks are going to go on. We'll load up rafts for everybody. Then we stop at Spencer, we'll unload the rafts. Southward to the whistle stop.
After arriving at the Spencer Whistle Stop, we take a 10-minute hike to the water's edge.
Hi everybody, welcome to Spencer Glacier, welcome to Chugach National Forest.
Not too long after making sure we're safe, we begin to paddle out.
The glacier's almost 2 miles away. All these bergs come off the face. They're floating, believe it or not. I've been here for 10 years and the glacier's probably seated over a quarter mile in the 10 years I've been here.
We make our way to Diving Bear Cove at Wolverine Creek.
Perched on treetops and along the water, the iconic eagles wait for salmon scraps.
The fish are clearly here today, a good sign we might see a visitor soon.
I think we saw 4 different bears here yesterday, and sit here for a while and see what shows up.
I've got to give props to Jackie on this one. Armed with her binoculars, I was fixed on this eagle duo when I hear...
There he is.
So that looks like our 2.5-year-old male that's been hanging around. Malcor. Brown bear in the cove, brown bear in the cove. Tommy, do you copy? He was kicked out by Mama at the end of last summer or at the beginning of this, in the early spring here, so she can mate again this year.
Even when the salmon are working to avoid his grip, this young bear knows how to swipe a good meal.
We didn't get to show you all of the stories in our road tripping series. There just wasn't enough time. But you can see them all on our website, KTUU.com. Click Road Trippin' in the left column. This year, Road Trippin' took us to some hard-to-reach places, and along the way, we met some pretty amazing people. We took the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. See you down the road, Alaska.
Boy, there were bottles flying everywhere. It was quite the shock.
Tonight on the NewsHour, Anchorage shaken to the core. What this major earthquake has done to our city and what may lie ahead as the tremors continue.
Rocking and rolling, the quake sends a dangerous shower of rocks and boulders onto the Seward Highway.
And flying off the shelves, how the quake turned some local businesses into a big mess today with items flying all over the place.
Plus, we have some tips on how to keep your home safe.
The NewsHour starts now.
You're watching KTUU Channel 2 Anchorage, Alaska's news source. And now, the Channel 2 NewsHour from the state's #1 news team.
Good evening. People are still trying to get home tonight after a nerve-wracking day.
Now we have a helicopter in the air tonight. We're going to take a live look at what's going on the Glen Highway right now. Happening now on the NewsHour here on Channel 2 is Tracy Sinclair. Tracy?
Hey, Mike, Rebecca. It is quite a scene out here on the Glen Highway. We're kind of flying right over that area where we're going from 3 lanes down to 1. This is where the bottleneck occurs. Basically, it's trying to bypass the Eagle River Bridge, which we flew over earlier. You could definitely see the cracks in that bridge. Of course, there are a couple of other areas a little farther down the Glen that have other issues. So likely to be a bottleneck close to the Mirror Lake area as well, and including if you're going that direction. And, of course, we still have that damage out at the Palmer Overpass. But you can see traffic is moving, but it is moving slowly. Now, we're starting to see a few fewer cars come in off the Fort Richardson over the J-Bear area, but still a lot of traffic still entering this line of cars. And so anybody that's listening on the radio, just keep your patience with you. It is going to be a slow go, but cars are moving. There's a pretty consistent travel path with these cars going through. So everybody just stay safe and realize you do have kind of a pretty tight bottleneck of 3 lanes down to 1 in a very short space.
Tracy Sinclair in a helicopter high above the Glen Highway tonight. And late this afternoon, the Anchorage Police Chief Justin Dahl announcing some changes in the traffic patterns to try to accommodate all this. Let's go live now to Channel 2's Jill Burke, who's standing by with Chief Dahl. Jill?
Good evening. Chief Dahl, can you just talk about the traffic pattern change again, why we made this one decision?
Sure, yeah. So obviously the traffic going from Anchorage out to the valley most weekday evenings is very, very heavy, and the traffic coming into town is fairly light during that time. Even though that a lot of people have been sort of headed back to the valley throughout the course of the day, we knew there'd be a lot of extra traffic during the evening rush hour. So we wanted to maximize our ability to let traffic go out to the valley during that time period. So we elected to close the one inbound lane and have all 3 lanes go outbound. Obviously, with the damage to the highway, we're not able to use the 3 normal inbound lanes, so we've had some of that inbound traffic diverted into the normal outbound lanes. And we just shut that diversion down temporarily so all that traffic can flow out to the valley as smooth as possible. We didn't anticipate that taking a whole long time, as I think I mentioned earlier, about a half an hour to an hour, and then we'd open up that one inbound lane again. We're just trying to get people home as efficiently as we can.
Thanks. And I do have another question for you. But, you know, one of the things that we learned earlier today is that there are no known fatalities connected to this event, which is a blessing. People are very thankful for that with such a large earthquake, we have a relatively small amount of damage compared to the scale of the earthquake. Not to say that the damage isn't small itself. One thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned you felt the earthquake. You were in a downtown building when it happened. Tell me about that moment. And then you said even before it stopped shaking, police started deploying out into the community.
No, that's right. So obviously APD has its new downtown headquarters location. We have just a little bit of staff moved in already as we're sort of working our way into getting the building ready for us. My office happened to be one of the early ones to be moved because I don't have much that needs to be moved down there. And I was there with my assistant and some other of the admin staff. I think anybody that's lived in Alaska for a long time knows what feeling an earthquake is like. You know, you feel a little bit of shock and you think, oh, we're having an earthquake. And but it got stronger and continued, and everybody became a little bit concerned. It was certainly the strongest earthquake I've felt since I've lived in Anchorage since 1985. And so as soon as it started to taper off, I immediately contacted the dispatch center, make sure 911 was still working, make sure that we still had that emergency infrastructure in place to receive calls from residents. I started checking in with units in the field, giving supervisors some instruction on things to start checking on. And by the time I turned my portable radio on, which really the shaking hadn't even started yet, I could hear the police officers that were already in the field doing the things we expect them to do. Checking on critical infrastructure, checking with people that they could see, checking the buildings they were nearby, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Justin Dalton. We know that they will have extra staff out and about on the streets along with Anchorage Fire Department, so if you see them, know that they're out doing the work that they need to clean up after this event. Back to you.
All right, Joe Burke reporting live for us tonight. Governor Bill Walker did an aerial tour of Anchorage to check out the damage earlier today.
Channel 2's Rich Maurer was there as the governor gave his report to the entire state. Live on Channel 2, Rich.
Well, yes, the governor had a press conference today. He basically talked about how much he really appreciated Alaskans helping Alaskans, how much he appreciated the first responders, how much he appreciated even the federal government coming in and offering assistance. Which brings us to another point. The people, we're in the State Emergency Operations Center here. You can see there's a lot of activity here. People are calling in with damage to their houses. They're saying, don't do that. Call your local government, call your municipality, report it, take a picture, document it somehow, and then make a repair. And if you need to file with the state or file with your insurance company, but no one knows at this point what the disaster declaration means in terms of who's paying for what. So there's no point calling the state. At this point, you're just clogging up a line. Mike?
I can't say enough about the first responders. As we flew over the highways that were traffic diverted, they were there immediately, putting people over on the other side of the highway, closing down some of the highways. Some of it was done in precautionary stage. The airport, the upper ramps were closed just to check those out first. Those are now all open again.
And there's been a lot of closures for people checking things out. The railroad was closed today while people check out the tracks and the line. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline was closed for a while, but now has been reopened with no damage found. So all in all, it was a major quake, but there's not a lot of damage. Rich Maurer?
All right. Rich Maurer reporting live for us tonight. Rich, thanks for the update. Now, Rebecca, one of the images from this quake that I think we're all going to remember for years was that scene of what happened at Minnesota Drive and International Airport Road.
It definitely was. A couple went into a wild ride. The road beneath them collapses. Channel 2's Hank Davis is there live tonight. Hank.
That's right, Mike, Rebecca. I think that everyone in Southeast Alaska got that complimentary wake-up call at around 8:30 this morning. That earthquake rocking the area and doing some damage. We're still at the scene of some of the worst of that damage. You mentioned Minnesota Drive behind the camera. This is the on-ramp. This gets up onto the International Airport Road, heads to the airport. Very busy area, a lot of travel. So you can see the crews out here working diligently. Their goal right now is to get that sinkhole cleared out, get rid of all the loose material that the earthquake shook around, and then to get this road operating back normal again. You know, the on-ramp southbound also shut down right now. They've got a crew over there assessing that damage as well. For now, they're asking people to kind of plan around this area, not to go there. We actually talked to some of the MDOT crew, or some of the Department of Transportation crew members earlier this afternoon. They told us a little bit about the project, and we caught up with the couple that was inside of a car that was inside of that sinkhole hours ago.
Well, the whole car started weaving, and so we started slowing down, and as we went up the on-ramp, everything around us started crumbling away. Yeah, it was a little scary.
You can see that they were actually in pretty good spirits. Their car slowly sank down into the bottom of that sinkhole. Neither of those passengers injured. They got their car out safely. No damage to the car, surprisingly, but plenty of damage here on the scene. These are just a few of the roads that have been impacted by that earthquake. And again, like I mentioned, if you're trying to get on International Airport Road, you're going to have to pick another intersection. Both the on-ramps in this area closed. Mike, Rebecca?
All right, Hank Davis reporting from Minnesota Drive tonight. Thanks a lot, Hank. We've been reporting all day about the damage and cleanup in the earthquake aftermath.
Now we're hearing more from people who have been directly affected by this event to see how they experienced the earthquake. Channel 2's Derek Minnemeyer joins us live in studio with more. Derek.
Well, Mike and Rebecca, Neil Shelton of Wasilla took a tour of his community just to try to process and assess the extent of this event. This video Shelton took on Vine Road southeast of Wasilla. You can see the extensive damage completely blocking the roadway. Shelton says he was walking down his stairs when the quake struck, that his house felt like it was on springs. He says this was unlike anything he's experienced since moving here from North Carolina, but it's just the reality of living in the state of Alaska.
It's Alaska. Everything, there's no middle ground in Alaska. Everything's extreme, from the seasons to just anything. So it's all, all part of being here. And I actually enjoy it. So it was an experience.
Now, Shelton also took a trip to a gas station near his home, Turner's Corner. Coming up later in the news hour, we will hear from the owner of that store about what he lost, as well as what he gained by staying open for business. Mike, Rebecca?
All right, thanks a lot, Derek. Some amazing video from that gentleman out there in the valley.
It's shocking to see. I'm so glad nobody was hurt. It's shocking nobody was hurt.
Yep. All right, the first quake hit at 8:30 this morning. This is still an ongoing situation tonight. Joe Burke is standing by with Anchorage Mayor Ethan Berkowitz. Joe?
Good evening. We're here at the Emergency Operations Center. Just a short while ago, we had a press conference, and the municipal leaders were explaining that they're in the process of pivoting through the initial damage assessment. And Mayor Berkowitz, where do we stand at this time?
I think we're in a position where we're feeling very comfortable with the progress that's been made during the course of the day. We think that things are very stable. Many people have returned home. Most people have returned home. Most of the city water and sewers is back in operation. Power is back on, and we're just getting things back to normal. But it's going to take a while, and we're very grateful that people weren't really hurt in the course of this.
And you had mentioned that you felt that in relationship to the scale of the earthquake, the scale of the damage is smaller than one might anticipate.
We had a 7-point-something earthquake, and when you look at the fact that we had no fatalities and that the amount of infrastructure damage was fairly isolated, the number of structural damage was fairly minimal, you compare it to what would have happened and what has happened in other earthquake-hit areas in the world, we have done amazingly well, and we've done well because we were prepared for an event like this. Our building codes were strong, we built well, and the population here, the Alaskan public, knows what to do and takes care of itself and takes care of one another.
And walk me through the next couple of hours and maybe the next day in terms of priorities. What's the number one priority, and then where do we move on from there in the next 4, 8, 12 hours?
So the immediate priority is to make sure people stay safe, and that if there are folks who are in need of immediate shelter, that we can find shelter for them for the immediate evening and maybe the next day or so. That's the biggest priority. We're going to make sure that there's a lot of first responders who are available to deal with any of the emergencies that might exist, and we are just drawing down some of the initial response, taking a breath, and seeing where we are when we do our next assessment.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Mayor Ethan Berkowitz, City Mayor in Anchorage. So we heard that individuals, residents are being encouraged to boil water. That's a precautionary measure only to make sure that nothing has been contaminated. There are no known issues, but again, the Anchorage AWWU is recommending that people boil their water at this time. We've heard that the north-south road corridors are open. There may be detours and delays. Individuals still encouraged to shelter in place, take care of one another, go out, check on your neighbors as well, be prepared for those aftershocks. So that means have on hand what you might need to ride something out in case a larger event takes place again. And that would mean have your fire extinguisher, have some flashlights, make sure you have some food and water. They're going to have another update tomorrow, and they're going to work here throughout the evening. Back to you guys.
All right, Jill, thanks so much for the update. And the mayor mentioned, Rebecca, one of their top priorities is making sure people here in Anchorage have a safe and warm place to stay tonight.
That's very important. That's when they were going to turn things over to Beth Verge to tell us a little bit about how that is working out. Beth, where are you? And tell us about what the story is.
Yeah, Mike, Rebecca, I'm outside the Egan Center in downtown Anchorage. Right now, it is bitter cold downtown, but that area is actually serving as a warming shelter for tonight.
I was very, very panicked and quite shaken up.
So we talked a little bit with people who were inside the shelter earlier today. There were less than 24 people in there, and only a handful were there specifically because of the earthquake. But they all said that they were thankful to have a space to go to. As for what's visible here in downtown Anchorage right now, a lot of streets got the traffic moving, but lights are out in some sections. There are windows that have fallen out of some of the taller buildings, and so there are areas that are cordoned off as well. So you want to watch out for those if you are walking downtown. And then, of course, the icy streets, things like that, the normal, those are all still going on. But again, the Egan Center, is serving as a warming shelter for tonight, and we'll bring you more of this story later in the news hour.
All right, thanks a lot. Beth Verge reporting from downtown Anchorage tonight. We've heard so many here, we're hearing stories from so many of our viewers sharing how they felt as the quake happened.
I love Alaska. I'm not leaving.
That's what a lot of people told us today. Our live coverage continues as we go around South Central to survey the damage. All right, welcome back to our continuing coverage of this major seismic event that hit the Anchorage area and a big portion of South Central today.
It is all anybody is talking about right now.
Yep, and a lot of people are still dealing with it, trying to get home tonight. We have a helicopter in the air tonight, and Tracy Sinclair is high above the Glen Highway. Tracy, give us an update. How is the traffic situation headed outbound?
Well, we're still dealing, obviously, with some very heavy traffic. We're right near the exit from J-Bear, of course, on the Fort Richardson side. And what I can say is when we first went up in the air at 5 o'clock, there was a massive line of traffic across this bridge all the way into the Fort Ridge area. Now, this has gone down. We've only got about 5 cars on the bridge, so we are starting to see the traffic, at least almost like the tail end, but we're still seeing those cars come in from Anchorage. So at this point, we are just dealing with the heavy traffic, very consistent. Right before the Eagle River Bridge, we go down from 3 lanes down to 1, and that's what's slowing everybody down. Once you get through Eagle River, we do have a bit of a clearing area, and people can move at a higher speed. Things break up a little bit. There's also likely a couple more bottlenecks depending on how far out you are heading. So we want to give everybody a heads up to just kind of hold your patience. We've still got cars coming in on the Glen Highway from the Anchorage area. So we're not quite seeing the end of this yet coming through this night. Mike, Rebecca?
All right, Tracy, thanks so much. And Rebecca, one of the things that Chief Dahl mentioned in their press conference late this afternoon was the chief is cautioning people these road situations are not going to end in a day or two.
No, and it's good to see that, more, as he mentioned, more people are getting home at this point. Most people are home for the day. You can definitely see the traffic is lessening out there, which is great. Right. People are getting home safely.
Yep. All right, well, the Glen Highway, the Seward Highway, and several major priority roads in South Central have damage.
We have damage on all of our high priority roads. So the Glen, the Seward, Minnesota, there's a lot of stuff out there. So.
The Department of Transportation says as soon as the quake was over, it had crews out there. They inspected up to 100 miles from the epicenter, and on the Seward Highway, there are still rocks coming down.
We still have rockfall going on the Seward Highway past Potter's Marsh, where you have rocks coming down. With every one of these aftershocks we've received, it's a little more unstable and a little more rock comes down.
Of course, this will take months to fix all of the damage. DOT says it also is closely inspecting all of the bridges in the area.
Yeah, you were supposed to be on a plane to the governor-elect's inauguration on Monday.
I'm supposed to be leaving on Sunday for that.
Yeah, and we've been told just a few minutes ago that was supposed to be in Norfolk Monday before noon. We're told by Governor-elect Mike Dunleavy's spokesperson just a few minutes ago, those plans are still kind of in flux. They have not made a firm final decision as to whether they're going to proceed with that, of course, with the developments of the day.
And it's interesting, today is actually the Governor Walker's official last day on the job. He was in an elevator at the Atwood building when all of this happened, and quite the last day at work.
Yep, a scary way out. All right.
When we come back, we're going to go talk with Instar about gas safety. The company says it has been very busy fixing leaks today. Let's bring Jackie Purcell into the mix to talk about the earthquakes we've been having today.
You know, Jackie and I were talking about this earlier. It's when you look on the map, it looks like a swarm of earthquakes. We had the big one hit just a few.
Say there's like every 30 minutes now.
I was looking at the charts, and it seemed like every 30 minutes. And I think we're going to go to Jackie now, who's got a chart up.
That's right. I got the weather computer up so you can see that swarm of earthquakes there that have resulted as a result of an outcropping of the original earthquake that happened this morning at 8:29 a.m. So let's take a look at that graphic again, because we're going to show you what is causing these earthquakes. It's a very tectonically oriented place here in Alaska. We've had at least 14 aftershocks since this morning, ranging from 4.0 to 5.7 magnitude. It's all because of the Pacific plate sliding underneath the North American plate, and that boundary is right along the Aleutians. It's called a mega thrust boundary, and when that plate slides underneath, there is slippage, and sometimes it's a big jolt to the terrain on the surface. So that is exactly the type of situation that happened for us today, that 7.0 magnitude earthquake this morning. And for our current conditions right now, it's been a fairly mild day, 25 degrees. The winds are calm, and that is seen out of Cuddy Park here in Midtown. Now for tonight, we'll see some snowfall. It could be up to an inch into the later hours, and then start mixing with rain and snow. Yes, that's the danger. Here's a look at, did you see that shift? Well, that was when the earthquake occurred, and this was really from the early morning hours out of our Glen Alps camera. Here's a look at the Pacific, and we're going to kind of wind it up and push it into the state of Alaska, where we see a fairly vigorous storm system starting to blast through the southwestern part of the state. Started really last night, but here they are with some mix of rain and snow coming their way. A lot of that cloud cover continuing to push all the way into the interior, sliding into south central as we speak, really. So there it is, the messy situation over southwest Alaska. A little bit of snow way up there toward Hooper Bay, but then that rain snow line and then that push of warm air, turning a lot of that to just plain rain. They're looking pretty quiet into the interior, at least in the last several hours. They're cold too, 1 below. We even see sub-zero temperatures around Ukqiavik, 5 at Dead Horse, 29 back into the Anchorage area, and wow, look at those temperatures out through the Aleutians, and these are the kinds of temperatures that are going to be swinging in and swinging our way across the south central area. I am still on track to see temperatures go up to the low 40s for daytime highs tomorrow here into Anchorage. Well, we're going to continue to see a series of low pressure systems move on through. Here we are into the Saturday time frame, and there's still going to be a host of winter weather advisories, maybe even warnings, along with some gusty winds along those coastal areas as this series of low pressure systems just makes a parade line right up the west coast. Now for your forecast, it's south central that we're looking at, and we'll see some snow Friday, maybe even some freezing rain into the forecast for your Saturday. Those temperatures are going to slowly start to come up. Here's a look at our 7-day forecast for the Anchorage area, going for that rain snow mix tomorrow. 36 for the high temperature on Sunday and Monday. A little bit of a cool down on Tuesday, but again on the above average side of winter. Here we go. A mix of rain and snow entering the region. It's going to be a weekend of cleanup because of all the, displaced items from this earthquake, but let's end it with saying, have a pleasant weekend, everyone.
A good positive thought. You know, another
Yes,
blessing
really,
of this, Jackie,
Jackie.
we're not dealing with bitterly cold, sub-zero temperatures.
That
in all
is
of
so,
this.
so true, Mike and Rebecca, yeah.
All right, we'll see you back in a few minutes. All right, looking for major infrastructure issues. Coming up on the News Hour, we'll have an update on the condition of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline after this big earthquake. All right, welcome back. All of the big shaking today threw businesses for a loop during today's earthquake.
Now, what's the impact like for small businesses? Channel 2's Kaylinda Kindle has the details from small business owners today.
Hi there, Mike and Rebecca. Well, small business owners told me they are feeling the impact after today's earthquake. I caught up with one owner of Pete's Violin Shop who says he has tens of thousands of dollars worth of instruments destroyed. Outside Peter's Violin Shop, it looks like a normal day. But inside shows a very different story.
Open the door and see this, so it takes a while to sink in.
After a 7.0 magnitude earthquake, the damage is setting in for owner Peter Buczynski of Peter's Violin Shop.
Pretty impressive here.
Around each corner, more and more destruction.
It's amazing. Something like this can survive 100 years, and then you have an earthquake.
Buczynski said he opted out of earthquake insurance.
As a small business owner, you don't think about a total loss, and this was not a total loss, but you don't really, you kind of look at the premiums, and it's so expensive, and especially the earthquake we had a few years ago. I looked into it after that, and the quote they gave me was, pretty high, and I figured, I could do it, but, it's hard enough running a small business as it is in today's economy, but everything you add on top of it, it's almost you can't make ends meet.
Now feeling the impact, he knows he has more problems with the power out.
40%. Once it drops to 39, 38%, then we start having problems. All of these instruments in here are made out of wood, and when it drops below 40%, the instruments start drying out and cracking.
But he says he hasn't lost hope.
But we'll get through it like we do. Alaskans are tough, and we all come together. We'll make it work.
Kaylinda Kindle, Channel 2 News. Now, the owner says for all small business owners, he's hopeful that Alaskans will come together during this difficult time. Mike and Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Kaylinda. After the break, we're going to go back to Jill Burke. She is standing by with the department chair and the fire chief for the Anchorage Fire Department. Welcome back. It was a pretty scary situation. Immediately after the earthquake, a house caught fire in Midtown, burning it to the ground.
Now, luckily, no one was injured in that fire, but the home is believed to be a total loss. Channel 2 Sean McGuire is live tonight from the site of that fire and has more about how to stay safe during an earthquake and gas leaks. Sean?
Mike and Rebecca, the big message from NSAR at the moment is that if you suspect there is a gas leak or you smell a gas leak, you need to get out of your house immediately, call NSAR, and then they'll send a crew to make sure it's safe before you enter. Now, if you look behind me, you'll see the house is looking like a near total loss. The garage area is lit up. They think they may have been able to save that. Firefighters are coming back and forth doing what's called fire follow-up. That's where they're going to spray water on areas that are hot to try and cool them down, to try and stop another fire from starting and potentially destroying the house further. This morning when firefighters arrived, they arrived to a very different scene. Billowing smoke seen for miles around near 76th Avenue and C Street.
We got a call right after the earthquake. It stated there was smoke coming from the structure, and due to the earthquake, all units are responding everywhere else around the city. We were a single unit resource initially, and got here, and then they upgraded it, and then had to divide all the units back out amongst all the other problems around the city. So.
Passers-by saw a house fully engulfed. The home was a total loss. Firefighters worked into the late morning to save the garage.
Nah, the earthquake probably was a contributing factor, but won't know until we do an investigation on it once we have the sources available. No. It's a long morning.
Rose Fanhofer says her father and stepmother lived in the house and they were able to get out safely.
But the house has been there for a long time. He came up in 58, and the house was like built in the early 60s. So it has been in the neighborhood for a long time.
NSTAR crews were also there, making sure there weren't any gas leaks.
We were just there for precautionary purposes, making sure that it wasn't gas-related, which it appears that it was not.
A home lost, but a loss put in perspective.
Totally happy that nobody's hurt. It could have been a lot worse.
Stand by.
Now APD crews have been busy all day, but so have NSTAR crews who have been working across their service area to try and assess potential damage to gas lines as well as to fix gas leaks. Now crews are working over 3,000 miles of natural gas pipe from Houston all the way down to Homer. Now the most damage is believed to be in Eagle River, close to the epicenter of the earthquake. I'm told downtown is also an area of interest because there is steel pipe that is more liable to split than the plastic pipe used across most of the service area. NSTAR's President John Sims has this recommendation about how to stay safe.
At this point in time, we're responding to about 170 pending calls for leaks that people have smelled for gas. If you are a customer that smells gas, please leave the area and then call NSTAR Natural Gas, and we'll respond as quickly as possible.